Welcome back to the SwimSwam Breakdown. As always, I'm your host, Coleman Hodges, coming to you from Austin, Texas. We've got SwimSwam Editor-in-Chief Braden Keith in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and SwimSwam fan favorite author, Yen Lee from Madison, New Jersey.
I'm
What's
a
up,
fan
guys? It's been a
favorite author
while.
now. Is that my new
I think
title?
so.
Yeah, everybody feels bad for you because you got your Twitter hacked.
Did
Someone
you?
said Braden hacked it because he was salty that he lost to me in the draft. And honestly, I believe it. I believe it.
No,
Ooh,
honestly, I
conspiracy
don't
theory.
care about winning the draft. All I care about is beating Ben. Because if you lose to Ben in a fantasy draft,
It's a little embarrassing.
that's not good. It's not good at all. My team let me down, and so I'm going to put that squarely on them. I drafted great. They let me down.
And that's what it is. We've obviously had a lot happen in the past 2 weeks. I think more than we even bargained for. So let's get right into it. Swim of March, swim of the month. Give it to me. KD's 200 IM at 148.2. Kate Douglas. Leon Marchand's 400 IM from NC's 328.8. Or Summer McIntosh's surprise world record 356.0. What is the best swim that's happened this month?
I think you captured it perfectly in your video last night, Coleman. We were all hoping we'd get a little bit of a lull here at SwimSwam after a couple of chaotic weeks, and Summer just said no, sir. You're going to get right back into it. So I'm going to give it to Summer for choosing violence. I don't think it would have surprised anybody to see her win the world championship this year, win the Olympic gold in Paris. I don't think at this meet, at these trials, that was what anybody thought. And as good as Kate's swims were, as good as Leon's swims were, I feel like Summer's more than any kind of lit people's imaginations about what we might be seeing this summer and next summer. That's how I look at a question like this, where it's obviously a ridiculous question because they were all obscene swims and there's no bad answer to this question. To me, she was the one that brought up the most what in the world could we see next sort of conversations.
I'm gonna have to go with Marchie in March. First of all, because Leon Marchand and it was in
nickname.
March. Didn't you come up with it? You were the one that came up with it.
No, I wanted to call him the Lion, and you guys said that was stupid.
But that doesn't even make sense. That's just boring. Anyways,
Leon
and it's Adam Peaty.
Oh, I didn't know that. Maybe I should do my research. But
Yeah.
I think maybe it's just me, but Summer, we were surprised that she broke her world record right now at this stage, but we knew that she would be going 356 someday.
But she didn't win this world championship. This is not the one she won the world championship in.
But she's also, the world championship was also last year. She's gotten so much better since last year. And anyways, and with Katie and her 2IM, I also thought, I knew that was coming from her. But Leon and his 328, that was just mind-boggling to me because when you think of, because I didn't think he had a 328 in him. I thought he had broken the record so many times in season, and I just didn't think he had room to drop that much, and he did. And when you look at just the margin over the second fastest performer of all time, he's 4 seconds faster than that.
In yards.
And it's just margin of victory, just the surprise element for me. And when you look at the picture of his finish, he's so much more like far ahead than Carson Foster, who's a world silver medalist, Hugo Gonzalez, the former record holder. It's just a display of dominance. And as good as the other two swims were, Leon's 328 was just the most impressive in my book.
So you're hurting Summer. You're downgrading Summer because the rest of the Canadian swimmers aren't that good. That seems fair.
I'm not downgrading.
No, that's
Summer.
fair. No, that's fair. Totally fair.
Well, but Summer is less than half a second away from the next two performers in Ariarne Titmus and Katie Ledecky.
Okay, but that's Katie Ledecky. Carson Foster, great
Yeah.
swimmer. Hugo Gonzalez, great swimmer. They're not Katie Ledecky.
Yeah, but so in the same vein, KD is almost 2+ seconds ahead of Alex Walsh and Tori Husk. And they swam the second and third fastest swims ever right behind her, and she made them look like no ones. So to me, Kate Douglas's 2IM was the best of those three, because I think Leon's 3:28.8 is at like the tip of what is possible for him to go, and not like a stupid time. I think 1:48 high was that equivalent for Kate Douglas's 2IM. Yin Yin called it. She said 1:48 for KD. I'm giving it to her. But I don't think anyone called 1:48.2. I think some people were like, Leon might like go like an 8.8. Sorry, 1:48.3.
That's because people overproject for Leon Marchand. I didn't think.
Well, that's because he already broke the NCAA record twice before NCAAs. And so Kate hadn't had a swim like that so far this season. So to me, I think this swim came first. And so the surprise factor and just like the, oh my God, and the fact that she beat the next two fastest performers in that heat by so much, that's what made it stand out for me.
You've convinced me, Coleman. You're right. It was Kate Douglas.
It's fun fact, little inside scoop here. I talked to Kate Douglas yesterday for I'm doing an interview with her for the SwimSwam magazine. She didn't decide on swimming the 200 IM till the day before entries were due, and then she went 1:48. Like, what?
And that's how Virginia rolls, right? Like when you talk to their coaches, like, how do you decide the events? And they're like, yeah, whatever event our swimmers are most excited to swim, which is easy to do when you're going to win the meet by 100 points, of course. So, well, eventually they'll have a competitive meet, and we'll have to see if that changes at all. But I love that for now.
I'll give another fun little insider tidbit. Before Canadian trials started, Mel was going to put out a gold medal minute of Katie Ledecky, and he predicted that Summer was going to get third in the 400 world champs.
Oh,
that video is no longer coming out.
He probably said Ledecky
with
was
those
go
predictions.
354.
Those predictions will never see the light of day. You'll only hear about them on this podcast.
On TikTok as a hot take.
All right, so we're already on the topic of yards. We're done with meters already. Let's talk about NCAAs. There's so much to talk about, but as an overview, men's or women's NCAAs, to you, which was the better overall meet?
I thought going into it, I was more excited about women's because of the 100 free, the 100 fly, the 2IM, some of those races that we had lined up. And while there were some great individual performances and the 200 IM, like we just talked about, I thought overall some of the swims didn't live up to the hype. The men's meet to me totally lived up to the hype with the team battles with Leon Marchand.
Exceeded the hype.
Yeah. So to me, from just a like, and maybe that's a victim of expectation, but there was not a lot of interesting team battle in the women's meet, and that still does matter at NCAAs, right? This isn't the Olympics. The team battles are really the crux of what we're doing, and just the back and forth with Texas clawing their way back up to third, Indiana coming down to the wire, having the chance to get them. I think we could have seen a few more good swims, maybe from the Cal guys like Destin Lasco. If Destin Lasco had broken a backstroke record, it would be a slam dunk, no question for me. But still, I think the men exceeded the hype expectations better than the women did. So I'll say the men.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Braden on this one. Coming into the meet, I was also more excited about the women's meet just because I was really hyper-focused on the very stacked races in the top. And I do think part of the reason why I thought the men's meet was more exciting was because the women's meet felt very top-heavy, because the UVA trio, Tori Husk, Maggie McNeil, they were all doing great, but the rest of the field almost felt a little disappointing, because I was looking at the top times in the country after the NCAA season ended, and almost all of the men's times actually all the men's times except for Jordan Crooks is 50 free. And we all know what happened with the 50 free and the whole starting scandal. But
Scandal!
every single fastest time in the nation was set at NCAAs, whereas the women's meet, there were so many events where the fastest time was at a mid-season. The fastest 500 free time in the nation was set at a Texas NC State dual meet, and people weren't going nearly as fast as NCAAs. And in two medley relay, only 5 teams dropped from their seed, and I don't know, it just felt a little disappointing all around. Like the top, it was still very fast. Both meets were incredible, but I just feel like the depth at the women's meet wasn't really there.
Well, in the Crooks controversy almost made it a better meet, right? Like any good sporting event that has ever existed, any of the greatest sporting events that have ever existed, almost all of them have had controversy. That's just part of what people like in sports, in my opinion.
I guess that might take it over the top, but to me, I feel like the women's meet was the better meet, but like for the same reasons, it exceeded my expectations because the 200 IM was so fast. Like the top 3 were, historically fast. The 100 fly, you had 2 women under the old record, 48.4, 48.5. The 50 free was so fast. Like I didn't see Gretchen Walsh going 48.2 in the 100 back. Like there were a lot of times where the winning time was way faster than I thought. And then there were half the events that were not fast at all. But then like the relays at both meets, UVA set a lot of the records at conference, but then went nearly as fast or as fast on, I think, one.
At the men's meet, all 5 relay records were broken.
I think I'm a little, I don't know. I think we've seen meets in the past where like at men's meets, at like 16 and 17 where like every individual NCAA record gets broken. And so to have 5 relay records, but then only 3 individuals, all from the same guy who we thought was going to go fast, I think that's what for me feels kind of like, okay, this was a really great meet, but Leon's the only one who's breaking individual records. So like, whereas the women's meet, I didn't think we would see times that fast in a lot of events.
I thought 1 through 8 was better in the men's meet.
And I agree with that.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think I will say the men's, but in my mind, that's the argument for the women's meet.
You're just mad that it was cold in Minneapolis.
It was pleasant. It was sunny. It was pleasantly cold.
The women's meet, definitely had more stars. And honestly, I'm only picking because you forced me to choose, Coleman. I don't want to have to choose between either meet.
Why are you doing this to us? Keeping it on this NCAA madness, both meets were super fast. We can all agree on that. But why? Why do you think that yard swimming has gotten to a point where if you're not breaking an NCAA record, we're just kind of like, okay.
Which is sad in a little bit of a way. I think there's a few things. I think it's the, not having the prelims relays, which for a lot of the big swimmers is saving them 3 or 4 swims over a 4-day meet, which for that matter used to be a 3-day meet. I think that's a huge difference. I think some of it is there's a rabbit on both sides to chase, right? There's Leon and there's Kate Douglas and there's Alex Walsh. We're just so happen to have a couple of superstars rolling through at the same time. And that's how advances are made in swimming, right? Somebody comes through and does something crazy and then everybody chases them and realizes what's possible. I also kind of wonder if we're in a little bit of a sweet spot where, we used to have the mega volume training and then we went real short. And it seems like more coaches than not have kind of settled in a middle place where you do more race pace stuff than they did in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but you do more volume than they did maybe in the mid 2010s. And more coaches have sort of perfected this idea that you don't have to just be fast one time a calendar year. So I wonder if some of this is there's a few coaches around of the right age, right? Like think Todd DeSorbo, what's he, 45, something like that. So he's, he saw it all, right? He probably trained in a high volume program. He probably started coaching when he was young and learning in an environment that was trying more race pace stuff. And it seems like he's hit a balance of how to do both of those things and how to do them well and how to do them well more than once a year. So I'd like to believe that maybe we're entering sort of a golden era of coaching where I want to say have cracked the code, but we've kind of figured out where that balance is between the volume and the sprinting.
Yeah, going off of what Braden said about the golden era, not just the golden era of coaching, but also a golden era of swimmers, especially on the women's side, because I mentioned this once before, but I think Kate Douglas, the Walsh sisters, Tori Husk, Claire Curzon, and Maggie McNeil are the most talented, most dominant group of 6 NCAA swimmers that we've ever seen. And we talk a lot about the greatest NCAA swimmer of all time, but really, I think if there's an award for the greatest group of NCAA swimmers of all time to be swimming college at the same time, I would give it to them. And yeah, I think that's also part of the reason why, just having these generational talents in the water at once.
Well, and that's always a sensitive subject, right? Like everybody who swam in the 80s thinks that their heroes were just as good as today. They just didn't have this, and this. From where I sit, there is just more talent in the sport than there ever has been. The swimming is getting better athletes than they ever have. And it feels like a trope, but it probably goes back to Phelps. Because that's kind of the age these kids are, right? They started swimming at peak Phelps era. And so maybe it's, maybe the coaching is perfect for better athletes. Like maybe it's a combinatory effect where better athletes need a different kind of coaching than people like me, who I'm not a great natural athlete, right? I'm an above average natural athlete, but I'm nothing compared to the swimmers of today. And like I probably needed more volume to hit my potential, just because I didn't have that twitch to respond to some of the stuff that they're doing now. And maybe these coaches have just sort of intentionally or otherwise hit on something that wouldn't have worked in the 80s, but work with the kind of athlete they're swimming with today.
I'm curious about one thing, whereas I feel like, especially when you're not at the highest level, a lot of people, they're really fast in high school and they go to college and they just burn out, because in college, you're not just focusing on swimming club 5 days a week. You're having a student life, you're getting an education, you're pursuing other things. And I guess on the swimming aspect, you're not going as fast and you're burning out. And I wonder if we're seeing a trend of less than that than we are in the past. I mean, it still happens, but maybe less often.
I certainly feel like people are more aware of it. And like the emphasis on mental health in athletics generally, I think helps with that as well. Like, if you need to take a step away, do it, which Adam Peaty just did, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I'm going to use another trope. Say what you will about it. ISL changed the game. Everyone's swimming fast all the time. I think that trickled down into the NCAA. I think coaches are seeing that, and Braden brought it up, but I think the fact that people can swim fast throughout the season has changed the stakes. And then you get to the NCAA and that automatically elevates your mentality. And I think the body follows, and then you're going to be able to put up fast swims. Because I think coaches are finding that the best practice for swimming fast is swimming fast. Last yards topic. Leon Marchand completed.
Australians, you can start watching here.
Leon Marchand completed the first perfect season in the NCAA since Natalie Coughlin in 2002. He was undefeated in individual final swims. What does this mean? How significant is it? Does this mean Leon Marchand is an actual superhero?
And I think Natalie Coughlin might be an actual superhero. Somebody questioned this in the comments. They said, so they just didn't swim off events. Well, that's absolutely not true. They both swam off events en route to their undefeated seasons. It just so happens that they were really good at their off events.
He led the NCAA in every stroke.
Right. They just don't have off events the way that the rest of us did, which again, better athletes don't have to be breaststrokers or backstrokers. Turns out neither motion is necessarily any more complicated than anything else in sports. And if Steph Curry can dribble really well and shoot 3-pointers really well, I don't know why you can't swim breaststroke and backstroke really well. But I digress. The fact that Leon and Coughlin are the two who have done it says to me just how big of a deal it is, right? Like, we didn't need this stat to know that Leon had a ridiculous season. We didn't need this stat to know that Natalie Coughlin had an obscene NCAA career. Like, people who weren't following the sport back then because it was pre-SwimSwam and the coverage didn't exist, like, it's probably hard for them to conceptualize just how good Natalie Coughlin was in that era. So the fact that, like, two of these people who are sort of undeniably recognized as among the top, well, Leon's probably not among the top 5 yet, but if he swims out his Arizona State career, he will be. Like, that says to me that this is significant, because it's not like there were just really good swimmers doing this, right? Like, it's two of the greatest have done this.
Yeah, before I say my take on this, I just want to say it took me so long just to get this stat, just to confirm that it was just Leon and Natalie in this 20-year period. I was going through every single dual meet NCAA PDF from like the early 2000s. It was a
AKA
lot.
before Yin Yin was born.
Yeah.
This record was older than Yin Yin.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's pretty significant that it's Leon and Natalie that were the two swimmers that pulled off this perfect season, because obviously being undefeated isn't a metric of success. And as much as people want to say now that swimming fast all the time is more important, it's just a matter of fact that some meets still matter more than others. And if you lose a dual meet and you're not undefeated, that shouldn't count against you in a NCAA greatest of all time debate. But I think
it did. What if that's how we handed out NCAA entries?
Ooh, Gretchen Walsh, you lost to your teammate Kate Douglas. Bummer. Loser.
Yeah, then we'll get a lot of angry emails. But yeah, I think it's more so just symbolic, because personally, I think Natalie Coughlin is still the greatest NCAA swimmer of all time, at least the most dominant. And Leon is on a trajectory to becoming a swimmer as dominant as she is. And I just think it's very like picturesque.
We're done with yard swimming. Australians, here's your chance. We're switching to meters. As we mentioned before, Adam Peaty has announced that he will pull out of the 2023 British World Championship trials, citing mental health reasons. He is, quote, burnt out. He needs a break. I think we've kind of seen this in his times leading up to this. He's been 59, 100 in the 100 breast lately. He swam 200 breasts. I think he was 212-ish. So he's taking a break. He's still training with his coach, Mel Marshall. The question is, do we think this break is going to be enough to propel him to a podium finish and or gold medal in Paris?
It's tough, right? Because mental health means so many different things to so many different people. So it's hard to know exactly what the depth of that is, what he's doing to work on it, et cetera, et cetera. Based on the information we have now, I'd say probably not going to win a gold medal. If he comes back, I think he's still a strong medal contender, but like Nicolo Martinenghi and if Michael Andrew brings it back together in this race, he's got a 58-1. Like, I feel like the 56s are done. I feel like we're done with the 56s. I feel like we're done with Project Immortal. Maybe even done with the 57s, but maybe you could get a 57 high or something. But to me, there's just kind of too much competition around the world. Arno Kaminga, he had a bad year last year, but that was largely due to different illnesses he had. So there's no reason to not expect him to be back in that 58 low, 57 high range. I just don't see it. This doesn't feel like Simone. This doesn't feel like Caleb Dressel, where they are going to take their defined period of time and come back, right? Like it kind of feels like he's been working on this for a year now, and there's no timeline for mental health. But at some point, that time will just be stacking up, and a year might not be enough for him to get it all back together. I don't, to me, if he had swum at trials and it didn't go great, and then he went to Worlds anyways, and it didn't go great, that would at least be a step forward. I don't want to say the wrong thing here, because obviously his mental health is most important. But to me, it's the fact that he's still at a point where he can't swim the trials meet. That doesn't give me a lot of confidence that he's going to have it worked out by next year.
Mm-hmm. To me, it seems as if Peaty hit this high a few years ago and was just going higher and higher and higher, and then he started thinking about stuff like Project Immortal, and I don't know, and he just crashed after that, and that's normal. That happens to everyone, and it's something. And with these crashes, it's like it takes a bit of time to realize you're in that position, and I think he's had a few bumps in the road already with what happened, missing the podium at Commonwealth Games, breaking his foot. And I think he's just him skipping him skipping trials to me comes off as if he's finally realizing that maybe it's time to step out, take a break, realize that he's not in the best state. And I think for him, the goal isn't to get back to where he was in 2019 going 56s, but just to find that spark and that love for swimming again. It's something that he's talked about, and I just don't think medals are the priority for him. And I know it's interesting how Braden said that this is not a case like with Simone and Caleb, but I honestly think it's a pretty similar situation, whereas they're trying to get back. They crashed and they're trying to take baby steps back into the sport. And I think he's in that position. I don't think a year will be like enough for him to go back to top. Maybe he can probably medal, but for now I'm going to say I don't think he's going to win gold.
Well, it's kind of an interesting timeline when you look at how this all kind of came about, right? Like, he swam so well. He was swimming so well. He couldn't miss. And then he kind of wrote the book. And I've never written an autobiography, but what I would imagine is that writing a book about yourself is a weird headspace to be in, right? Because people, you're really doing a lot of self-examination. You're thinking a lot about yourself and what's important to you. And that can be a good thing. It can also be a dangerous thing, I think. Like when you go to therapy, right? Therapy is a lot thinking about yourself and what's important to you. And that's a good thing, but it's sort of a managed process. Writing a book isn't always a managed process. So you create a version of yourself that you want the world to know you as, right? No, these books are never fully authentic, or very rarely are they fully authentic, especially when you're still active, right? If somebody writes one end of life, long after their career is over, maybe they're a little more authentic. But when you're at the peak of your career, you're trying to write a version of yourself that frankly is going to sell a lot of books, is going to sell some endorsements, is going to get some followers. Like there's a goal of these books, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. But it felt to me like when he was writing that book, he was in a strange headspace where he was kind of like, he was trying to create memorable quotes for the world to use in a tribute to Adam Peaty. And then when the swimming stopped going well and he broke his foot and all of those things, it's almost like he came from this highest high where Adam Peaty is at the top of everything. And so it's not just like the swimming, right? It's not just he was swimming really well and had an injury and things kind of fell apart. It was everything in his life. He was on top of the world. He was on the dancing show. And did pretty well on the dancing show. Like everything was coming up Peaty. And then the injury happened, and that would be really, really hard I think, to go from feeling like everything was going right, and then all of a sudden it's all gone. Like it's not all gone, but it could be easy to feel like it was all gone.
To me, autobiographies seem like a reflectionary thing. It's something you do when you're retired and you're bored and you want to look back and think about your life. It's not something you do when you're in the peak of your career, and I just find that a little strange. But
people buy more books when you're still active. That's why you do it while you're still active.
There's other ways to make money. I just find that a little out of the blue.
Books are a really good way to make money. If you've never written one, consider it.
Maybe I'll write an autobiography right now and I'll sell it on SwimSwam.
Yeah.
It's your window, Yin Yin.
Yeah.
All right. Staying on the topic of Europe and long course, World Aquatics has announced the World Cup series for 2023. It'll feature 3 stops, all in Europe, all in the month of October: Berlin, Athens, and Budapest. It's long course, as is tradition in the pre-Olympic year. What are just our initial thoughts on this announcement? We have 3 stops again. This time they're all in Europe instead of Europe, Canada, and North America. It's a long course. We've seen that before in pre-Olympic years. What do we think?
Well, I like the 3 stops. I thought that worked pretty well last year. I think much longer than that, especially when you do the different pods like they had been doing, I think it can be hard for the general public to sort of stay engaged with it for too long, which, by the way, is something we've seen in the ISL format too. So I like the 3 stops. I wonder what happened behind the scenes that they're all back in Europe. Because from where we sit, obviously I sit in the United States, but it seems like the North American stops were good for the series. But we have to remember that whenever you look at World Aquatics, you have to look at the politics of it. And World Aquatics and the new LEN governing board are very close, very politically tied. They like each other a lot. So you wonder if the Europeans said, we want all of the meets this year, and World Aquatics said, yeah, you've done some things for us, so we'll allow that. I don't know. That's what it looks like from the outside to me. So we'll see if it's as popular this year. It's hard to get an objective global picture of what's popular. We can look at our traffic and see how interested people were. It'll certainly be a little easier for athletes to attend all 3 stops. So maybe that's part of the motivation too, is trying to not get people to just go to one stop and say, I don't want to get on a plane across an ocean right now, so I'm just going to skip the other 2. But I'm not fully convinced that'll work either. I think the athletes kind of do what they want to do.
Well, I'm mainly salty about it not being in the US, because if it was in Indy, I would have wanted to go, but I cannot travel to Europe. Or at least it would be difficult.
You don't have a passport?
I do, but I'm not gonna travel, huh? I wouldn't fly in the middle of October. I won't be in New York next October, but anyways, from a commercial standpoint, I do think having it in North America drew a large audience, drew more engagement, and Australians can say whatever they want about this, but it's just a matter of the fact that US is the biggest premier country for swimming, and having these meets be more accessible to Americans, especially big name Americans like Katie Ledecky. I don't think she would have done the World Cup meets if they were in Europe.
Definitely.
And she was what drew the most attention this year at the World Cup meets, and just everything with one of the World Cup meets being in Indy, and that being the site of Olympic trials. There was a lot of discussion around Olympic trials when that meet was happening, I remember. And just it's more accessible to people that probably wouldn't have been able to go if it was in Europe. For example, there's a lot of NCAA athletes that were at a few of the World Cup stops this year, and if they had to travel all the way to Europe, it probably would have been a lot more difficult for them. And I just remember this year generating more attention than last year and previous years. And yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But I do think having it in North America was a great commercial move last year. And I'm kind of upset that they're not doing that this year, but whatever.
Would have been great to have a US meet in long course because everybody would have showed up.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
I was talking about this off camera before we started recording with Coleman. There's so many US athletes that only swim long course, like Katie Ledecky, and there's just this dead period between the big summer long course meet and the US Open where we don't see a lot of these swimmers race. And having a US meet in long course in October would be a great opportunity to fill that dead period.
Because we used to have a fall pro swim series and we don't have that anymore. Although that was sometimes in yards.
I do miss that though. I personally, I don't love when the World Cup is long course. It was in Minneapolis. Yeah. I don't love when it strays away from short course meters because it's the only short course meters, like high profile meets we get, but I understand it. It's fine. That's our news for the week. Now it's time for some sink or swim. First up today on Sink or Swim, Ruard van Renen, the top mid-major scorer at the men's NCAAs for the Southern Illinois Salukis, enters the transfer portal. We have speculated where he might pick for his next landing spot. I am curious, sink or swim, Ruard lands in the Pac-12.
You just call him Rue. The Australians will like that. It's tough, right? Because Cal makes the most sense with Peter Coetzee going there and the backstroke thing. There's a lot of reasons that Cal makes sense, but there's no way that Cal has any money left to give him either next year or the year after. So from a pragmatic perspective, I don't know, maybe he's independently wealthy. I don't know his personal situation, but if he's looking for money, I don't think Cal makes a lot of sense to me. So, I'd sink it. I'm thinking he's going to wind up in the SEC somewhere. I'm thinking like an NC State. Somebody proposed Auburn, which has a pretty good backstroke group. He would be at the top of that group. But to me, when I talked to him yesterday, he really was like, "Yeah, I want people to race, but if I have to race the clock, I'll race the clock." To me, Auburn has enough to push him, but he can still be the top dog, which is, I don't know. To me, that's kind of like the ideal situation, right? Is to be the top dog among top dogs, to be that much better than the other top dogs that you're training with. So I think he's going to stay East. I would predict somewhere in the SEC. So I'll sink Pac-12.
I'm going to swim him going to the Pac-12 because I think he's going to go to ASU. I think ASU just seems like a great fit for him as a backstroker. They're really good at developing backstrokers. You saw that this year with Owen McDonald. He came in with like a 144, 143, 200 back time, and he got that down to a 139. Jack Wadsworth, who was probably in a similar situation as Ruard van Renen last year. He was a D3 record holder in the 100 back. And then he transferred to ASU, dropped a ton of time from his D3 days. And I think he scored at NCAAs or was close to scoring at NCAAs. And Ruard, he's a backstroker. And also ASU, I think Jack Dolan is leaving. That's their medley relay 100 backstroker. And I think Ruard slides perfectly into that position. So given ASU's track history of developing backstrokers recently and also having that sprint backstroke hole, and what Jack Wadsworth and Owen McDonald are better 200 backstrokers than 100 backstrokers, and I just think it would be a really good fit for him.
I don't know. Swim, I guess. I think Cal or ASU is a good landing spot. I think they have good history with developing international talent as well as backstroking talent. I think the prospect of training with either of their big dogs would probably be good if this guy's serious about getting ready for Paris 2024 as well as the next year's NCAA. So, yeah, I'll swim it. I don't know anything about this guy though, so really, who's to say?
This
Speaking of
guy
ASU, though,
who you keep referring to as this guy, so you don't have to say his name again.
exactly. Speaking of ASU, according to our time converter, Leon Marchand's 328.8 400-yard IM converts to a 358 long course meter 400 IM sink or swim. Leon Marchand 358 this summer.
Can't argue with math. I don't know what you want me to say. It's math. There's only one true math. That's a lie. I'm gonna sink it, but not confidently. No, I think. Look, I'm ready to say he breaks Phelps's world record. I'm ready to say that, and I think that's a big thing to say. I don't think he's going 358. I just don't think he's going 358. But I didn't think he was going 328 either. So what do I know? Let's ask Mel. Mel will call it 357.
Yeah, this is just stupid. Like, no, he's not. Like, he can break Phelps's 400 IM world record. I totally see that. I would be shocked if he didn't this summer. But 358, no.
What I love is that the converter has made it very easy for all of us to say that he's going to break the world record. We're all just like acting like this isn't the world record of all world records. And
but we knew that even during NCAAs when he broke when he went 328, everyone was saying he's gonna smash Phelps's world record. And I think he will break the world record, but 358 is just outworldly. And I've been reading a lot of the comments on that article, and someone brought up an interesting point saying that Marchand, a lot of the reason why he's better in yards this year is because he got better in underwaters, and I'm interested to seeing if that can translate to long course. And I mean, the phrase translating into long course has become a very touchy subject for readers apparently recently, but yeah, I'm curious.
I mean, the dude goes 404 already.
Yeah.
And that was with a best time of 333. He now goes 328 short course. It's not like he's gotten worse this season in long course.
But there's always the question of, was the 404 the start of the 328 or was it the end of the 333?
I agree, but I mean, I think it was the start of the 328. Meaning that he could drop 5 seconds in long course and go 359.
Too much.
No, I'm sinking it. I don't think he'll go 358.
I was gonna make you get a haircut if you swim.
I think I could confidently call a 401. Ooh, maybe even a 400.
I can see that.
This is gonna make a terrible TikTok one day.
All right.
Who's Kate Douglas's 148 convert to? I was curious about that. I heard someone say 205 in the comments, but I'm not sure.
I don't know. I didn't look.
I'd buy 205.9.
The converters are always a little wonky at the fringes because the math becomes a little exponential. Just trust me. I ran that phrase by Barry and he said that made sense. So just trust me.
All right, next up, Josh Liendo is fresh off a new Canadian record in the 100 fly. He was 50.36 last night at Canadian trials. And he is fresh off of his first NCAA title where he was 40.2 in the 100 free. Does Liendo win an individual world title this summer in Fukuoka?
I'm going to sink it just because the competition is too good. He's got to beat Popovici. He's got to beat Malak. I don't see either of those happening. And I think those are both better events for him than the 50. The 50 is more open depending on what happens with Caleb. But I think the 100 fly and the 100 free are his best events internationally. And I just think the competition's too good. I could see 3 silvers though.
I'm going to swim it on the basis that Dressel isn't competing at Worlds or is not in top form at Worlds. I don't think he's going to win the 1 fly. I think Milok has that in the bag. But I can see him winning either the 50 or the 100. And the 50 because it's wide open. But hear me out. On the 100, we have never seen Popovich go the times that he's been going. I guess we like with the whole drafting thing and drafting off of guys that are bigger than him in the water. And we have to remember that as at Euros when he broke the world record, he was out the quickest and he didn't have to swim in their wash. But Liendo, he goes out really quick. He was out first at the 50 at Worlds last year, and yeah, and that's just the scenario to think about. I think he has an outside shot at the 100.
I'm gonna swim it. I think he can win the 100 fly. The lock was only 50.1 last year. I know his best is 49.6. I think Liendo can be 49.6 by whenever Fukuoka is, because he's obviously done well with Florida training so far. He's dropped a ton of time, even though this was his first season in yards, but we've already seen the effects of it long course. I think he's a clutch swimmer. I think he could win. I think he has a good shot at the 100 fly. I think he could win the 100 free too. I have faith.
And he's coming off a double taper. It's a pretty good time for a double taper. And maybe it's still a single taper. It's only been like 6 days.
Next up on Sink or Swim, we had a recent interview with Simone Manuel. She documented her journey post-Tokyo back into swimming and in Bob Bowman's pro group. We've seen her compete now in Knoxville and in Fort Lauderdale. Do we see Simone making the World Championship team this summer?
I'm going to swim it. The U.S. is getting better in the 100 free, but the U.S. is still not great in the women's 100 free. And she's been swimming pretty well. She seems to get a little better every meet. So I'm going to swim it. I think the opportunity is there for a relay spot. If you ask me if she's going to make an individual, I'd have to think about that a little bit harder. But I think there's plenty of room for her to make a relay.
Yeah, I'm going to swim it as well. I was a little hesitant at first, but then thinking about just the US and the women's 100 free, there's going to be people that add time and there's going to be people that don't swim fast at the right moment. I can see her sneaking in for a prelims 5th or 6th place relay spot. But yeah, nothing more than that.
I definitely have faith in Simone. I think she'll continue to progress. She's already looked really good after not competing for over a year. She looks good with Bob Bowman training and that pro group. So I'm swimming it. I think she can make at least a 5th or 6th place finish in the 100 free.
Coleman, do you think she's going to take an individual spot?
Oh,
bonus sink or swim.
Yes.
Ooh.
I think she can get second the 50 free.
50 free. I mean, the 50 free is pretty wide open. It was slow last year. So
she still made the team on that in Tokyo, right? Everybody forgets she still made the team in the 50.
So Erica Brown is coming off a bronze medal at World Champs. So she's definitely a factor. I think Abby Weitzel is having a monster season. She's looking good so far. I think she's going to make 2 individual events.
Walsh.
So, but yeah, there's a lot of competition behind who I think Abby will win the 50. Yep. I think behind her, it's pretty open.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think Simone could do it.
Okay. 60 swim means 50% plus 1. So.
All right. And last up on Sink or Swim, we talked about this a little earlier. We're now on year 3 of timed finals at the NCAA relays. Let me try that again. Last up on Sink or Swim, we talked about this a little earlier. We are now on year 3 of timed finals at NCAAs for all relays. What do we think of them? Are we sinking or swimming timed finals relays at NCAA Championships?
When they first rolled it out, I hated it because, when you're at the meet, especially, you can feel the kind of weirdness when there's a kind of a top 3 contender in the second to last heat. Like you can sort of feel it in the building. As it's gone on, I've hated it a little less. I think I still lean towards not liking it. So I'll sink it, but I hate it a little less. On paper, I don't mind it because I like that it's faster swimming. What I really like about it is the fact that we can move another relay to the first day of the meet. And I think that's the right cadence for the meet, is to have 2 relays, 1-1-1. So I like that aspect of it, and it'd be much harder to do that with prelims relays. So I'm kind of neutral about it, I guess. There's some things I like, some things I don't like, but overall I'm going to lean I don't like it. So sink.
I'm gonna
Less than I
swim
used
it.
to.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna swim it. I mean, I wasn't deeply entrenched in swimming when prelims relays were a thing, but to me, NCAAs are already a complicated enough meet, and having prelims relays, just having the additional having to figure out lineups and putting swimmers in and calculating, oh, are they gonna have enough to do a double or a triple session? It's just very tedious. And you see the relays, especially the relays towards the later few days of the meet, you can tell that people are getting tired already. Especially the fourth relay, you can see that, and I just think having prelims relays just brings more strain onto swimmers, and I want to see faster times overall. And if that means removing prelims relay, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm swimming all the way. I want faster swims. That's it. No prelims relays equals faster swims across the board. Done and done.
Doesn't it feel a little flat sometimes? Don't the relays just feel a little like
They're
They do
flat
not.
because they're slow.
Okay,
And
what
if
about
they're-
this? What about this? A and B heats based on your regular season times.
No,
What
I
do you
don't like
mean?
that either.
So you seed into the A final or the B final based on your regular season times, not based on a prelims time.
I'm fine with that.
I don't like that because then you don't get to see Zoe Hartman's anchor Georgia to drop 6 seconds from their seat and
Well, they should have rested more for SECs.
Yeah, I mean, I think making the regular season a bigger deal is fine, which that does. I'm all for more important swims in the regular season. I'm not for monotonous swims that make relays overall slower.
Okay. Oh, what about, here's this. How about this? We make 4 finals heats of 4 teams each.
Oh my God.
Really ratchet up the pressure on prelims and make them not monotonous. Can you imagine how cutthroat prelims would be if you had to get top 4?
Oh.
Think about the men's meet this year and how many good teams would have been left out after prelims.
Jeez. Yeah, no, I don't
that
like
is
that
something.
idea, but it
That
sounds
is
wild.
Certainly something.
Or like skins the relays.
I think this could be like an all-star meet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we run an all-star meet? Just like we can organize it because no one else wants to.
Yeah, with the Sharks and Minnows game at the end.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be excellent. All right, this has been the SwimSwam Breakdown. We're back. You're welcome. Tune in most weeks for your week's news in swimming.
Let's make that the new sign off.